Hi everybody, this is Julia Chambers from Aberrant Crochet, and I wanted to introduce you to a finished hook. I've been calling her Mrs. Maplesworth, and I'll probably write up a little bit and add a few photos, but I thought I would go ahead and introduce you to her now. I've decided to go ahead and leave her natural as far as finish is concerned. I'm not going to officially seal her in some type of chemical stuff. A lot of times I do like natural hooks. You know, it's something that you know that you can continue to work with. I don't find that oils on your hands really makes a whole lot of difference in terms of your tools, because you know what, when you're working with wood hooks, those fibers that you're always working with continue to polish your hooks. So I always put a very high polish on my hooks. I like my hooks to be just, you know, just buttery slick. Slick, slick, slick. Of course, at the same time, I mean, every time I mention, you know, how slick and buttery slick a hook should be, sometimes I have this picture of, you know, of yarn going through butter, and that's not really the picture that I'm really wanting. But the idea being that you just want whatever you're working with, no matter how fine that fiber is. Because, you know, working with silks and working with cashmeres and some of your, you know, if you even luck into some pashmina or something like that, you're talking about incredibly fine fibers. And if you have a tool that is not slick and smooth enough, it will cause little bits of damage to those fibers. You know, some people don't notice all the differences. And this includes microfibers, by the way. I work with a lot of microfibers for chemo patients because microfibers in general are not only easier to take care of, but they can be sterilized. And unfortunately for chemo patients, depending on how well that therapy goes for them, if they do lose their hair, sometimes the reactions to it, chemo can break down the skin. And if scabbing starts to occur on the scalp and they're trying to wear something that's comfortable, you know, it's nice to be able to wash that item or sterilize it. Certainly we find the same thing, you know, with crocheting for preemies. One of the considerations, most hospitals require acrylic because it not only do they not have to worry about static when it comes to the oxygen tanks and that kind of thing, but again, I mean, it's usually hypoallergenic and it can be sterilized. So, you know, those are things to think about. You can't sterilize a fine wool without ruining it. So, or at least I'm not aware of any method that you can. And especially when it comes to preemies, they're always looking to reduce the amount of exposure to possible allergens and things, you know, because they're too tiny, they're too immature, their systems are not developed, you know, and that's a huge deal. So, and chemo patients, they deal with a breakdown in their immune system a lot of times. So, you know, being able to have something that they can wash and easily take care of is actually quite a godsend. So if you are crocheting for chemo patients, do give that a consideration. But again, so if I'm working with super fine fibers, and I like to pick a lot of microfibers, like I said, for chemo patients, because there are some very high quality microfibers that mimic things like pashmina and baby alpaca and what have you, that do not have the expense and of course do not have the upkeep. And see that shine? That's hand polish. Okay, I've polished on this probably about an hour and a half. But you know, so having a super high slick polish like that will just allow those fibers to slide without causing any friction, or at least minimizing the friction. I guess there's always friction, and that's always my goal. I find that crochet hooks that are a little too rough, I've mentioned this before when it comes to like plastic hooks, there's a lot of friction on a plastic hook, and some people even notice there's like a squeaky, maybe not quite sound, maybe you don't quite hear it, but you can sure feel it through your fingers. You know, it's kind of like that, you know, chalkboard sort of sound feeling vibrating through your bones. And it's annoying and puts you on an edge and all, and it's because of that friction. But it also, what it's doing is it's slowing you down. If you want to increase your speed and minimize the amount of stress and strain on your fibers as well as on your muscles and your hands, do that. Okay, go for slick. All right, it's just once you have experienced that, you'll be hard pressed to ever want to go back. You'll be like, why on earth did I do it the hard way all this time? So back to this. But this is Mrs. Maplesworth, and she is about, let's see, I think I figured out like 5 3/8 inches long. The lip on this particular one is right at about 1 centimeter. Okay, and as far as this area here with the bowl, okay, the bowl is like here inside the lip. That's roughly 1/2 centimeter. And I think, let's see, I think the throat is roughly 4.5 centimeters long. So it's got a generous throat. You've got quite a bit of room here to work. It's a consistent J size all the way through, up to here, of course, at the very end taper. And she's got a nice little point. Now, let me see if I can point out a couple of things. I'm going to use my antique hook as a pointer here. It's kind of interesting trying to do this behind a camera. Do you see this angle here? Part of what I did on this has to do with where this point ends up. Okay, there's a couple ways you can do this. If you see when I rotate this, how the point kind of angles just slightly differently. It's not a point that goes, I mean, it is straight out the side, but part of it has to do with the angle between the throat here and then what happens here. And this is one of the designs that I found that it seems, to me at least, in the experiments I've run so far, that doing this slight angle shape like this helps make it easier to get in and out of stitches. Okay, you ever use a hook where, alright, you're putting your hook into the stitch to pull up a loop, and yet your hook keeps getting caught in it? That's annoying. Okay, now part of that can be how you hold your hook. Part of it can also be this shape. And so that's another thing that I'm trying to take into consideration when I'm working with doing crochet hooks and all. Now, depending on how you hold your hook could dictate which angle, because you know, I could right now this bowl is angled down and back just a bit and away from the top here, but I could make that angle closer up to the top. All right, it just depends on how you are using your hands. But overall, I find that most people so far are finding it easier to use this particular shape and this particular design in getting that hook in and out of a collection of stitches, you know. And that's always one of those challenges, because certain types of stitches that we're doing, we may have to put you know, our hook through some really thick fabric to do some of the things that we want to do. And so the goal is to create a tool that is incredibly useful no matter what your situation is. So meet Mrs. Maplesworth. She's getting ready to go up for silent auction. Starting bid is at $5. So, you know, somebody's got to bid on that, because I guarantee you this is worth $5 in terms of work. I've been putting free shipping on there with that, so I guess technically if you bid $5, then that would be a free crochet hook if you pay shipping or something like that. Actually, shipping is a little bit more than $5. What I am trying to do, I would prefer to insure these if they're over $15, and I prefer to send them priority mail. I do not want to be mailing these things in bubble wrap. I'm sorry. I've got plenty of bubble envelopes. I use those for crocheted goods. But when it comes to a hook, I don't want these snapping in the mail. You know, I know that the Postal Service can be somewhat abusive. So I am going to be putting these into the small flat rate priority mailboxes. That seems to be the cheapest way to do this. And basically make sure that you get it in a timely manner. When I explored some of the other costs and stuff, unless I find a specialized box, which I haven't yet, that seems to be the best rate. So I just want to be sure that these things arrive in great condition so that you can immediately enjoy it. And so I'll write up a little something, try to add a couple more photos so you have a little bit more background on this hook. But this is ready to go, and happy bidding, and thanks for your support. Certainly, you know, my son and I both appreciate you. The monies from this are going towards his vision therapy, which is helping to restore his eyesight. Which, by the way, you know, if you've ever heard of vision therapy, if you have a rare vision deficiency, like in my son's case, even with glasses correction, he still does not pass the test to be able to see correctly. And part of it has to do with other things that may be going on, muscular, neurological, and modern technology has brought us some answers. So that's something that we're certainly grateful for. However, you know, the cost involved, it just depends on your insurance companies. It turns out for us that our insurance company does not cover it. And so we are coming up with whatever way we can to raise the $3,000 to be able to do that for him. So thank you very much for your support, and also thank you for your support in just doing this challenge, because it is very much helpful to me in terms of honing my craft, kind of pushing myself to be dedicated to something, and get through the move and everything that we're in the middle of. So let me tell you, that's kind of stressful, and so getting to just kind of talk about something I really enjoy definitely makes a difference. So again, thank you. This is Julia from Aberrant Crochet, and I hope you'll stick with me and watch me through the challenge.